the first time I wrote about Macklin Celebrini was right when he signed his tender with the Chicago Steel. And I remember you telling me right away, this guy is different. This guy is special. You had seen him a bit with the Shattuck team. I mean, what do you remember from them and what you've seen since then?
Yeah, he was awesome at Shattuck and had a good friend. His son played with him there, who was also drafted this week by Detroit in the 5th round, John Whipple. Congrats to him by the Red Wings, like I said. And, watching Mac, they were there at 14 years old. He was just exceptional from the start. Never the biggest guy. Compete was off the charts. He was just faster than everybody, more skilled, not afraid to do anything. And that translated as he took the next jump to the USHL. And then in college as a 17-year-old, I think he just turned 18, like 2 weeks before the draft, if he has even turned it. So he's the youngest player to ever win the Hobie Baker. And you rarely see someone with that skill set who also competes as hard as he does. I don't know if he's been billed as generational as a McDavid or someone like that, but he certainly has an elite level skill. But he competes, harder than anybody, and it's been cool to watch him, kind of excel at every step of the way. And I don't know if he's going to go back to school or not, but certainly ready for the NHL, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that this'll, we'll be hearing about a contract in the not so distant future. San Jose's been making moves to try to insulate next year's roster. It's still not going to be very good, but I think it'll be better than it was. And to have Celebrini, Will Smith at the same time, I think that we'll eventually see Mac there. His parents do live somewhat about 40 minutes away from the arena. So that's, I don't think he's going to be living at home. I think that there's other plans for him, because that's a bit of a commute. You don't want to have to drive into the rink that far, but I think that it's going to be a great thing for them. And obviously a historic moment for the San Jose Sharks, because I do think that he's a foundational piece for them. And, it was no surprise. It was great to see Jumbo Joe out there announcing the pick as well. You get Big Joe Thornton out there, and I believe that
Did you see what Mike Greer said about him and his role after the draft?
I did. And it's all about vibes with Jumbo. Yeah, he's just there to bring the vibes. Yeah, so I love that. So we love that about Jumbo Joe, and certainly he brought the vibes right away. He was obviously excited to see Macklin Celebrini, and I wonder too if Macklin might be a housemate with Joe Thornton or somebody, because get the vibes on and off the ice.
All time.
The other. I do also want to touch on Chicago picking number 2. Obviously, there's been a ton of debate leading up to the draft about should it be Ivan Demidov, should it be Artyom Levshunov. There were reports that Chicago even tried to get the number 4 overall pick to try to jump the line, knowing that Montreal was very keen to draft Ivan Demidov, so that I think it was an unprotected first round from next year, and Columbus said no thank you, and I think that was actually the right call for them, because they desperately wanted Caden Lindstrom. And you don't know, what if Chicago, I don't think this would happen, but what if they went on a bit of a run next year, and all of a sudden that pick is not a lottery pick, or not a very high pick, and you just gave up the 4th for a lottery ticket essentially. But either way, they pick Artyom Levshunov, and I think there are some Blackhawks fans that are upset by that. I think there are some that are indifferent to it. I don't think anybody, the Blackhawks the whole time. I've been saying it on the podcast for weeks that I thought that was the direction it was going to go. You talk around the scouting community, that's the direction that it seemed like it was going to go. And here you are, you get a top tier defenseman. I have no issue with that. Chicago also ended up having 3 first-round draft picks, also selecting Sasha Boisvert and then trading up to get Merrick Vanacker, which I do think was a reach in the last pick. But at the same time, as you know, Maddie, from being in draft boards, if there's a guy that you like and you're not 100% sure he's going to be there with your next pick, sometimes it behooves you to trade up and go get your guy. But I'm going to blow past that, and I want to get your reaction. So Beckett Sennecke goes 3rd overall to the Anaheim Ducks, and loved his reaction to going 3rd overall. There was a lot of rumors in the weeks prior that was a potential destination for Sennecke, who was on the rise. He was number 11 on my list. But he ends up going number 3. He jumps Demidov. He jumps Tij Ginla. Jumps Caden Lindstrom even. And just your thoughts on not just that, but also where the Ducks are as a prospect pool. They're pretty darn loaded right now.
Yeah, that one was definitely a surprise. I think I saw a couple people right before the draft, in the media maybe tweet out that name was heating up to Anaheim. I think Verbeek usually keeps stuff pretty close to the vest. It's hard to read, and people could say, hey, the draft probably starts at 3 or at 4. Once he picks, it kind of clears the way on people's boards. The reaction was amazing, like you said. You could tell he didn't know it was coming, which is pretty cool. And I think, when the draft goes away in person, you're going to miss some of that authenticity and seeing these young kids, realize in real time that they just got drafted in the NHL, which is pretty cool. But their prospect pool is growing, like you said, and they definitely have a type. They took Leo Carlsson last year, big, strong, two-way guy. You don't believe how big he is until you see him play in person. And Beckett Sennecke is also a big two-way, long. He's a winger, 6'2", 6'3", can skate. Kind of came on late in Oshawa. I think everybody thought they were going to go defense just because they're light there. They traded Drysdale to Philly, in the Cutter Gauthier trade. And so, hey, we got to reload a little bit on the back end perhaps. But for them, he was best player available. Good on him.
Yeah, and I think that was I had done my final mock draft, and I'm still kicking myself to this day. I have the text receipts to prove that I was, trying to debate with people. Should I put Sennecke at number 3? I think it could happen. And then I chickened out because I don't think I had enough sleep to have the confidence. I was like, am I just dreaming? Did any of this really happen? And so instead of going 5 for 5 at the top, I went 4 for 5 at the top on the mock draft. But the Sennecke pick, yeah. So, I mean, Salayev was the other guy that I do think there was some serious debate about between those two players. You mentioned that they have some good defensemen in their system, but then they have really this need for that big, heavy shutdown guy. And I thought that could win the day. But I think if we look at the way that Pat Verbeek has drafted over the last couple of years, that's not, and Martin Madden is their director of scouting, who's been with the Ducks for, predates Pat Verbeek and is really one of the real talented scouts in the business. They haven't necessarily gone the conventional way or the consensus way. And they go for their guy, and that was back at Sennecke. And then in the end, I don't begrudge them for that pick at all.
Their last handful of picks too. I mean, they don't get a lot of love in the scouting or prospect community just because they're out west, second team in a market. Well, they're on late.
Yeah.
If you look at their last handful of high picks, it's Zellweger, McTavish, Minchikov, Leo Carlsson, and this guy. It's going to be hard to find a staff that's hit it like that consistently at the top in the last handful of years. So good on them.